Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with JcrOffroad. In this video, we're going to be installing our rear pet divider for the Jeep Cherokee XJ. So to start things off, I'll give you a quick rundown of what you're going to receive. You should have the pet divider panel itself, which will be 3 pieces, 2 outside mounting brackets, along with the bolt pack and hardware needed to get this thing assembled and installed. We'll start things off by bolting the panel itself together. I'm going to show you just one side and how this goes on, as the other side will kind of just be an exact mirror of that in terms of how it gets bolted together. So I'll set these aside along with one of these outer sections and we can get started. Now before you actually secure the 2 panel sections together, there's just a couple things you want to pay attention to. So one, just to make sure you have the appropriate side panel, is you want to make sure that your flanges, when facing the same direction as the center panel, all kind of line up, and when overlapped, all the mounting holes line up as well so that you can easily install your hardware. With that, you can kind of pay attention to the smaller overlapping tab here on the outer panel, and that will go underneath the flange here on the center section. Now when it comes to installing hardware, you're going to have 1/2 inch long quarter 20 bolts and flange locking nuts in your bolt pack. Those are all going to be the same length throughout this entire install, so that's pretty straightforward and easy. And then what we're going to choose to do, paying attention to the way the bottom flange is facing here, we're going to install these with the smooth side of the button head toward our pet to keep them as safe as possible and prevent them from any encounter with the hex edges of this nut. So once you get the bolts in place, just go ahead and thread the nut onto the back side here, and then I'll repeat that for the remaining 2 bolts on this main face. So along the top flange here, we are going to run these from the top down, just being that you don't have a ton of clearance between the headliner and the top of the flange here. But they should be pretty well tucked up underneath this flange and generally out of the way away from your pets. And then lastly, along the bottom flange, we're going to install them from the bottom up, again just keeping the smooth side into the cargo area. And then, as with all your hardware throughout this install, you can grab a 5/32 hex and tighten these up. And now with one side assembled, we can take our other outside panel and follow those same steps to get this one installed. Then once you get your panel assembled to this point, we'll grab our outer mounting brackets and get those installed into the vehicle. So the mounting brackets in here are going to mount closer to the front edge of the MOLLE panel, specifically in this 3rd row of round holes here. We kind of tucked the seat belt out of the way to hopefully give you guys a little bit better view during this part. Basically here, you can either remove the 5/16 mounting bolts, holding this panel in place temporarily and install these out on a bench, or simply take your 1/4 inch nuts, kind of fish them in behind here, and then grab the bracket itself in the proper orientation here with the 5-hole panel mounting flange kind of toward the front of the vehicle. I've got the bolt in the slot already there, and then I'm going to kind of slowly get that lined up and get it started with the nut behind here. It's a little more tedious this way, but it saves you having to fully remove the panel from the vehicle. And then again, a little bit tricky just to get back in here and work around the bracket and everything, but you can kind of follow that same process and get the remaining 2 bolts in. So then with all 3 of the mounting bolts loosely in place, I'm just going to kind of snug one up here for now, just so that this isn't moving around a bunch as we get the pet divider in place. With that snugged up, we can jump over to the other side and repeat that same process on the remaining bracket. So once you have both mounting brackets in place, you can bring the pet divider here into the vehicle. We just slid it through the side door pretty easy with the seats down like we have here. And then just make sure you've got this upper flange toward the rear of the vehicle, bottom flange toward the front, and you can kind of start sliding it up into place. Basically, I'm just going to kind of start bringing it up here. You got to make sure to get the seat belt slid in through the cutout here in the end. And then I'm going to bring it up and place it just against the front side of the mounting bracket. And line up just my bottom bolt hole and get that bolt installed from back to front there, and the nut on this side. Then I've jumped over to the other side where we also need to get the seat belt through the cutout, and then kind of same thing, we can slide this up and back to get at least one bolt here lined up and started. Now those two should hold and kind of support the panel while you get the remaining 6 bolts in place up the side of the mounting bracket. So then once you do have the panel hanging in loosely with all of the vertical mounting hardware here, you can come back in and check your adjustment both side to side and front to rear on the main mounting bracket, and then tighten things up. Now one thing I do want to point out real quick is this remaining slot here toward the bottom side of the outer mounting brackets. That's going to remain empty. That's just there so that these brackets can be the same and not have to be left and right specific. So don't worry about that. Leave it as is. There shouldn't be an additional hole or bolt there. Now with all that tight, your installation is complete. If you guys have any questions at all about this installation or anything else we offer here at JCR Off-Road, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always send us an email at info@jcroffroad.com or just give us a call at 269-353-1184.